I can't blame people for often referring to the works as portraits. However, there's a very specific tradition of portraiture that I think the work sits outside of. I think there's a way that portraiture can seek to contain a figure within a format that's very familiar to us all. You know, figure seated in a chair with some objects that relate to their life behind or in front, and that makes us all very comfortable and feel we've got a window into this person's world. But I set the figures differently because I'm having a dialogue with the surface that I'm working on, the frame that I'm working within, and I am thinking about how a figure enters into the space that I'm presenting it in. I'm trying to give the sense that the figure exists beyond that boundary. And so in that way, it's a kind of anti-portraiture, because the framing of portraiture, both in its art historical sense as well as in its kind of physical sense, is something that I'm kicking against, pushing against. I work in pastels mainly, and I've been working in pastels for about 40 years. And the reason I choose to work in pastels is because it might sound contradictory, but it's quite a fluid medium. And also it's as close as you can get to working with pure pigment. But as soon as I started working with pastels, I knew this was the medium for me, because I could get a very strong image that had a lot of intensity to it very quickly. And when I started making work as a student, I had a sense of urgency about getting the work done fairly quickly. I wanted to see it up. I wanted to see what I was working with, and Pastels allowed me to do that very quickly. The range of colours that I was working with were very much earth colours, moving through to warmer tones of orange and yellow and red. And I probably pulled that from looking at skin tones, at black people's skin tones, and that became my kind of signature palette. The space that I feel people are entering is somehow bound up with my experience as a first-generation child of Caribbean parents growing up in Manchester, in a Britain that was getting used to having a multicultural society. And I think that experience of having to locate myself in a place that didn't quite know what to make of me is present in the work, in that I've chose the subject, the black subject is still pretty new in art. It's not something that has a long history in terms of Western painting. I suppose I'm trying to interrupt this very homogeneous experience that people might have when they walk into a gallery and see lots of the kinds of faces they're used to looking at. People walk into the Courtauld and they see the Van Goghs and the Gauguins and the Manets, and when they walk into my show, they meet the black subject as being introduced as part of the story of Western art, and so I think in that sense it's a political act to people my work with a black subject. I suppose I'm hoping to confound expectations of what an audience might think that encounter might be like. The effect of the work that Gauguin did in Tahiti, the way that it kind of presented an outsider view of Tahitian women, for example, is kind of the opposite of what I'm doing, in that I'm kind of working from the inside, in that I don't have the same objectifying lens. I'm working with a different kind of power, really. It's so hard to... I'm still working out what I'm trying to do in the work. That would be the most accurate thing I could say. I set myself this task of trying to ask myself questions about the form of what painting, what drawing are, and trying to make it continually interesting to me, alongside asking a question about what it means to be a black person at this point in time in this part of the world. And I suppose those two things are enough.